Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Alice. Alice, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Alice, I'm excited for this conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun. Your career is super interesting as well and really relevant to the discussion. So let's really start there today. First of all, we always ask, what do you love about content and marketing? But also catch us up on who you are and what you've done with your career.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been a marketer for a couple of decades now. At my current company that I'm representing, I actually was a customer first before I jumped over. So I came in with a very, very high level of enthusiasm, and that's at Ragent Corporation, which is a wireless networking company in the industrial space. And I'm the VP of Global Marketing for Ragent.
I love it. And what do you love about content and marketing?
I honestly don't think that I could have marketing without content. That is the driver. I don't believe that this day and age, if you do not have something for many flavors, you're going to be losing in the game. And I don't just mean, the subject matters that you're hitting on, but, how they are disseminated, the length and duration, the format, the channel, in-person, digital. I mean, it's just all over the dish. So you can, slice it any way you want. But at the heart of it, at the end of the day, it's content.
I love it. I love it. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I'm excited for this discussion. Alice, we were kind of emailing back and forth about the subject. And today we're going to focus on the power of one, really focusing on the basics. Mm-hmm. There's so many questions that can kind of come up in this space, so many things that people will immediately think about. So let's just dive in for the very beginning. How do you keep your team focused on the essentials when like a project involves a bunch of moving parts or people, a lot of mixed priorities, things like that? How do you kind of focus on the essentials when things kind of get crazy?
Yeah. So this may sound super simple, but it's actually, I believe, very difficult. And so I'm just going to take it slow. When I start any position, so I'm just going to talk from a perspective of Ragent, in this case, asking my executive vice president of sales and marketing, what do you need me to do in order to be effective? In a lot of cases, that's going to affect your pay plan. But moreover, it's to your point, how are you going to actually corral your team to do their best work? So start with the objectives, and they're going to be in sometimes some long form, some free form. And once you get those articulated, then I take those and bring them down into what I call focus areas, which are actually again, I'll use Ragent as an example. Everything that came out of the EVP's mouth came down to 4 words. Those 4 words in our case were lead gen, brand awareness, channel engagement, and data-driven metrics. And I take those 4 focus areas and I make them omnipresent in everything that we do. So it's in the agenda, it's in emails, it's part of, presentations that we'll give the board on a regular basis so that everybody's familiar with what we're running towards. And what that does is it's actually magical. It empowers people on the front line. So from the leadership down to the front line. So for me, leading the troop to the latest intern that I might have on a 6-month cycle. And it says to them and everybody else that we work with, whether it's, other stakeholders within the organization or customers or strategic partners, if you have a bright idea, we'll listen to it, but we can't prioritize it unless it does one of these, in this case, 4 things. And it's worked like a charm. I've had staff come back and tell me that being able to deprioritize, especially when you're a new person starting out, it feels so wonderful. And instead of feeling like you're under the shoe of somebody's demands. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. And I said it sounds simple, but it's not so easy to pull off. And you really do have to stick to your guns.
I love that. Anytime that you have to say no, things get hard. It is not an easy thing to do.
It's not an easy thing to do. And I'm not saying that those objectives and those focus areas are one and done. They're not. They're to be revisited on a regular cadence. And they may change around over time. I actually hope that they do. because then you've achieved one, knocked it out, and moved on to something else. But that level of empowerment, again, is very, very important in order to achieve the bigger goal that the organization is going after.
I love that. So you mentioned earlier that you're working with a global team.
Yeah.
And when you look at a global team, there can be a lot of moving pieces. There's regional components. There's a lot of things going on. So how does this power of one apply to that, where you don't really sacrifice like the simplicity, but yet have the complexities of a global system?
Another basic idea is know, like, and trust. So that I believe is a universal thing. I haven't been exposed to every single culture. We're in now 84 countries around the world, but I haven't found it to be untrue yet. So with that in mind, creating an occasion to actually speak directly to all of the enthusiasts and stakeholders that make up the marketing machine on a global level is very important. Here at Radiant, I call it the concierge marketing program. So what we do is that, we have a global sales channel, which is made up of distributors and resellers. And I would say, on a regular basis, sales will take time to meet and talk through their KPIs. But at least here, there was never an occasion where the marketing people were brought together, whether with the sales team or without them, to actually have strategic and then deeper tactical conversations. So again, making the time to get to know you. So why is that important? So for us as a global manufacturer, we work, let's just grab the distributors for a second, distributors that are selling our products, the boots on the ground in different geographic areas, they've got hundreds of manufacturers that they're representing. And I've had organizations come back and say to me, there is no one else that's making time to meet with us monthly or quarterly or whatever the case may be, and to discuss these kind of things. And when I'm having conversations with marketers at that level, you are not talking about your product in a vacuum. You're talking about their bigger strategy and how, if your product, in this case, again, Radiant, is important to them, how you can do your best work together. But by, let's say, making improvements to their website or how they're doing something on social media, it's only going to bring up the high watermark for everybody else and make everybody else's performance, as far as the other manufacturers are concerned, better. In the end, by being person that they know, like, and trust, they then are bringing to you some other challenges that they're having within their organization, and you're working through those together. And in the end, what you're left with is a very high level of mind share around your product and who you are as an individual. So your worth goes up and the value of the product that you're representing goes up. So
I love that. That's really powerful. That's great. So marketers are kind of notorious for looking at really shiny objects, whether it be channels or technologies or whatever it may be. And they kind of often get distracted. They kind of chase these trends, and it's often really difficult for them. How do you manage that and keep it simple, focus on the power of one and the basics? And, possibly, do you have any good examples of when you maybe kind of decide to buck the trends and maybe do something different?
So you come as with all of your experiences and circumstances, right? And you should absolutely port those skills from one organization to another. And that's how your resume gets you in the door. What you don't want to do is to take a cookie cutter approach to doing your best work at the organization that you're in. You absolutely, you could, but if you come in and repeat the same thing that you had a success with at the prior organization, you're going to miss all the nuances that you really should have in order to be effective at your new location and do your best work. So I always take a tailored approach to listening first. There's the Stephen Covey quote, right? I mean, people are, but to truly take it to heart where, okay, when I started here, I wasn't the VP of global marketing. I was a newly created position that was the assistant to that person who was doing the job, and net new headcount. And I don't know about you, Ben, but if you go into an organization where there's never been a person doing a certain role, they throw everything but the kitchen sink at you. So,
Yep,
oh, good,
very
we
much.
have a new body here, and like we'll do this, and then we'll do that, and so in order to be effective, it's like, great, Can I meet with customers, board members, fellow employees, our channel partners, and see what's important to you, a mini SWOT analysis. And once you do that, then you're actually then going to be able to get to the heart of the matter and prioritize the most important work on the low-hanging fruit, the bigger, 12 to 24-month plan activities. And you won't be distracted because, again, going in with that mindset of setting your focus areas, you don't have to be just a leader of a department to create your own focus areas. Everybody has a boss. Ask your boss what your objectives are, cull those down to those focus areas, and then keep it, within this space of knowing what is your best non-cookie cutter approach, and you're gonna get some good things done and not be distracted.
I love it. So in digital marketing, there can often be a ton of complexity. How can we simplify that? How can we apply this principle to that space?
Yeah. So I have two, and we have done them here, and I hope it works for the people that are listening. So one is the metrics that we have. Gosh, it's a slew of data that's coming at us. Create a OneView dashboard. That's what I would say. And this is one, it gets you focused, and bringing those KPIs that, and again, ties back to those focus areas. So I don't want all the KPIs because there's so much data, just the ones that are on those focus areas. Bring them into one view that can be dynamically updated, whether it's with campaign driven or actually daily activities through different touch points. That's accessible to everyone in the organization that needs to know. So, in this case, leadership, for a couple of reasons. One, you then have a finger on the pulse of what's important and what's moving the needle, but also very important, you're not just being perceived as a cost center. And then you actually can show attribution to what your team is actually working on so that nobody can come to you and say, what have you done for me lately? You can actually show them for better or worse. So you also want to be able to smoke out very early on if some of the things that you're not doing are not working so that you can pivot and move to something that will be more effective. So that's one. The other one is to actually, if you have a large enough team, to assign an individual to your social media channel and let them curate it to their personality within the branding guidelines and the company's voice. But that has worked out extremely well for us here. It was an outsourced activity. The social media channels were outsourced activities, very out of touch with the day-to-day, could not make any type of pivots, could not be reflective of the personality and the true culture of the organization. So if again, you have the time, I would highly encourage you to make those assignments and make sure that those individuals are living on that channel to like, repost, engage, react to inquiries. Hey, that's how I got to you, Ben, and you got to me. So
I love it. That's so cool. I love those strategies. So we're running close to being out of time. So one final question. And this is kind of an overarching question that I think is really kind of impactful to understand the whole space. In today's marketing, how and why do people complicate things? Like, why do you think that's the case in general?
Why do they complicate things? I think that a lot of people are just a little muddy about how much research people are doing on their own and not putting enough credence into getting that information out there for people to do more in the greater part of the selling cycle. So I think that we just have to get our minds around the fact that there has been this strong shift to 70% of the people just doing their own deal before they'll ever talk to you. I think the other thing is that you really run the risk of being thinned out, spreading yourself too thin, that you really are going to do your best work if you can go back and do the high impact activities and not be so drawn away back to your term of a shiny object, because we'll wake up tomorrow and there'll be 6 things on the news that we should be doing. Heck, it's bad enough that, with AI, we thought we might have a runway of maybe 18 to 24 months. And I'd say it's pretty much cut to 12. If you don't have, some AI driven stuff in your 2025 plan, you're going to be smoke
Yep.
come 2026. So stay focused.
I love it. Well, Alice, thank you so much for the time and insights today. This has been amazing. I'm guessing there may be a handful of people listening to this episode that would love to connect with you. How and where can they find you online?
Yeah, well, sure. My best place, my favorite place to find professionals online is on LinkedIn. So Alice DeSanto, you can find me there. I can be found at Ragent, and I'm also somebody that you can find within the Security Industry Association, as I am the chairman of the Women in Security Forum for the Security Industry Association. So you can also look for me over there. Next week, I'll be at a trade show at ISC East. So if you want to meet in person, happy to meet you in New York at the Javits Center.
I love
And
it.
you can also A. DeSanto at Ragent.com.
And for anyone listening, we will link to everything in the show notes. So look at that section to reach out to Alice directly. Again, Alice, thank you so much for the time and insights today.
Well, thank you so much, Ben. Enjoyed being here.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.